Good morning. My name is Byron Reilly. I am the Director of the Federal Grain Inspection Service International Affairs Division. I have been with the agency now for 43 years since its inception. First, I'd like to thank USSEC for inviting me to participate in this very important conference. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the role of the Federal Grain Inspection Service in providing export inspection for U.S. soybeans. FGIS, as an impartial third party, its primary role is to facilitate the marketing of grain by providing inspection and weighing information to both buyer and seller. We establish official standards for U.S. grains, oilseeds, and rice. We develop sampling and testing methods using the latest technology available and applying it to grain science. Our major role is managing the National Inspection System. This is a unique system which includes federal, state, and private inspection agencies, all overseen by the Federal Grain Inspection Service. All inspectors at all levels are tested for their accuracy in determining grain quality. They also must take an exam in their knowledge of inspection laws and regulations. FGIS does not market grain, mandate quality. You determine the grain quality in your contract. We do not set grain prices. That is decided between buyer and seller. We do not test for genetically modified organisms. That is typically done by commercial third-party laboratories. And we do not arbitrate in disputes. Typically, arbitration is specified out in your contract between your buyer and seller. The Federal Grain Inspection Service is governed under two federal statutes. The first one is the U.S. Grain Standards Act of 1976, which brought the Federal Grain Inspection Service into being as part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Under this act, it requires that all grain exported from the United States must be officially inspected and weighed by the Federal Grain Inspection Service. It also provides for the voluntary inspection of grain movement within the United States. The second act is the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946. Under this act, it covers such commodities as rice, dry edible beans, peas, lentils, hops, and other products made from grain. There are some 200 products that are covered under this act. Unlike the U.S. Grain Standards Act, inspections under the AMA are not required for export. Inspections may be requested in your contract if you wish FGIS to perform those inspections. Otherwise, they will be performed by a private commercial laboratory. FGIS partners with two other federal agencies. The first is the Food and Drug Administration, whereby during the course of our inspection, we are required to report potential violations to the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act. These are possible contaminants that may be harmful to animal and human health, such as excessive aflatoxin levels in corn, we find treated seeds in the grain, or any other harmful substances. We must notify the Food and Drug Administration to take appropriate action. The other agency that we work closely with is the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. FGIS reports any live infestation and other quarantine pests to APHIS. APHIS will then use that information to issue their phytosanitary certificates. FGIS has a number of quality assurance programs to ensure that the quality of the grain that you buy from the United States is graded accurately and consistent with the product specifications you specified in your contract. One of the programs is our quality assurance control program. This program is an automated program which monitors the accuracy of our inspectors in the field. If an inspector has an issue with a problem, they are brought in for retraining. Now all their inspections results are recorded on a database, and we use that to evaluate the inspector's accuracy. Every field office has a quality assurance specialist. They are a senior inspector who oversee the accuracy and maintain the accuracy of all the inspectors under their jurisdiction. The quality assurance specialists, in turn, are monitored for their accuracy by our Board of Appeals and Review located at the National Grain Center in Kansas City, Missouri. Every office has program specialists, such as ones who are in charge of monitoring mycotoxin testing, equipment testing, oil seed analysis, and other programs. We also have the equipment quality control specialist who calibrates all of the field instruments located at all our export facility labs. He also performs periodic equipment testing to ensure the accuracy of each equipment. If a piece of equipment is out of tolerance, that piece of equipment is removed and replaced with another similar piece of equipment to continue our operations. Our National Grain Center is located in Kansas City, Missouri. It is the heart of the Grain Inspection Service. Our Technology and Science Division is located there with its other many specialized laboratories. A central reference point that approves and ensures all FGIS methods, equipment, and instrumentation are functioning properly. Alignment to a central reference is key. The Board of Appeals and Review ensures that all service points in the field are aligned to the bar. The bar ensures that all equipment aligns to the master equipment located at the National Grain Center. All the other scientific branches at that facility ensure that all their instrumentation-based programs are aligned to the master instruments. Again, under the U.S. Grain Standards Act, all grain must be officially inspected and weighed prior to going export. The services that we offer are a stowage exam. That's where, when a ship is at anchor, our inspectors will enter each and every hold of that vessel and check to make sure that it is clean, dry, free of infestation, free of standing water, and any other possible contaminants, such as fresh paint or other odors. If any problems are found, our inspector will notify the crew of the ship, and they must correct those procedures, those issues, prior to being loaded with grain. They will notify our inspector, who will come out again to confirm that the proper corrections have been made. Now, between the time of the initial inspection and when it is time for that ship to come to dock to be loaded, conditions may have changed on that vessel. So our inspectors are required again to check each and every stowage hold to ensure that they are fit to receive the grain. We perform all our weighing services using approved scales at each of our facilities. We sample, inspect, and certify the grain according to your contract specs. The United States is one country that requires, for all export locations, they must use a mechanical sampler to take an accurate sample of the grain being loaded. Here you'll see a picture. The red device in the center is called a pelican. That is controlled by a timer under FGIS control. The timer is set according to the flow rate of the grain and the size of the vessel being loaded. The pelican will transverse through the grain back and forth every 20 to 30 seconds throughout loading. The grain will enter into the pelican device and into our laboratory under our control. The photo on the far right is an example of what our sampling area at an export facility would look like. Throughout loading, approximately every 45 minutes to 1 hour, FGIS will take the sample off of the collection box and give a full, complete analysis of that grain. Each time we take a sample off, that is referred to as a sublot, or a portion of the entire shipment. A sublot may represent up to 2,500 metric tons of grain. The sample is then broken down using a grain divider into smaller, more manageable portions to use in our laboratory. We have a work portion of approximately 1,350 grams, as well as an equal file portion of the same size. The samples are stored in airtight containers and placed on our shelves for 90 days for vessels and up to 60 days for containers. When we analyze a sample, the first thing we look at, we smell for the odor. Are there any off odors? Does it smell sour? Does it smell like other chemical residue odors? Then we sieve that sample to look for live infestation or any other abnormality. We then run a test weight in pounds per bushel, and that weight is then bucket is then placed on a scale where it can be converted into kilograms per hectoliter if you request that on your contract. Then we will take a portion and analyze it for the moisture. With the sample will then, the 1,000 grams work portion will then be handpicked for coarse farm materials such as corn, sticks, and other material other than soybeans. A 125-gram portion is then cut out using a Borner divider, and that portion is then placed on a sieve, an 8/64 round hole sieve, and shaken to remove the fine farm material. Both the coarse and the fine are then combined for a single result for farm material. The balance that is clean, the 125 grams, is then sent to the inspector to be analyzed for quality factors. Such factors are removing the splits or broken pieces of soybeans, looking for heat damaged kernels, stink bug damaged kernels, kernels that are damaged by other means, mold or whatever. You have the coarse and the fine material, and we also look for soybeans of other colors. In the case of subjective factors, our inspectors have access to visual reference images, which are approved by our Board of Appeals and Review in order to standardize all of our inspectors across the United States. Here they are looking at a green damaged soybean. So any soybean in question must be of that intensity and that color in order to be considered green damage. This is an example of an inspection log. It's generated off of our computer. Here you'll see that the second column is sublots, so they're numbered consecutively in order, and each of the columns are for specific factors: test weight, moisture, heat damage, damaged kernels total, farm material, splits, soybeans of other color, and the last column is protein. All those results for each column is then averaged mathematically, and the final average is then the specific factor result, which is placed on the final inspection certificate. FGIS back in 1980 developed what we call the QSIM plan, which is known as the Uniform Ship Lot and Combined Lot Inspection Plan. It's an online inspection plan that establishes statistically based tolerances, plus or minus, each quality factor for a specific grade level contracted. It assures that from sample to sample, the quality is uniform throughout loading. Now, a buyer may also specify a tighter tolerances, such as no sublot sample to exceed, for instance, 0.1% heat damage. Again, any tightened specifications like that may command a premium, and that is up to the exporter and you to determine. Here's an example of our export inspection certificate. It shows the date of the inspection, the certificate number, where it was inspected, the pounds for that particular certificate, has the quality factor information, remarks such as stowage exams, and any other quality factors like mycotoxin results. FGIS can also perform in-transit fumigation. If during the course of our inspection we find a lot is infested, we require that shipment to be fumigated in transit. The diagram up in the upper right corner shows a diagram of how fumigation through recirculation method is used. The fumigant is placed on top of the grain, and the gas that's generated is then sucked in through a fan down through a pipe to the bottom of each hold, and the vapors then penetrate up from the bottom as well as down from the top. In-transit fumigation has proved to be the most effective means to control all stages of live infestation. Some buyers, even though we do not find infestation during our inspection, will request this to be done as a precautionary measure under FGIS supervision. Foreign complaint process, your first step is to notify the U.S. Agricultural Officer at the U.S. Embassy or USSEC or directly to my office. File samples that are held for 90 days will be re-examined at the bar, and we encourage you to submit destination samples with as much information about that shipment and what your concerns are. International Affairs will issue a report of our findings. We do not reissue certificates. We do not arbitrate disputes. Copies of the report will be sent through the Foreign Ag Service overseas that will be delivered to all interested parties. Common reasons for discrepancies are typically non-representative sample taking at destination, poor sampling of handling after you obtain the sample, or using different testing methods or interpretation for subjective factors. More information is available at the ams.usda.gov website, looking under Services for the Federal Grain Inspection Service. There you can find our laws, regulations, standards, and inspection procedures, mycotoxins, handbooks, as well as our visual library for all the various damage. I look forward to your questions at the end of this session. Thank you.